Securing a pause in the fighting in Gaza was never going to be an exercise in trust.
No, not at all.
It is a high-stakes diplomatic gamble. And this whole gamble is framed by, well, the massive documented terror of October 7th, shifting alliances, and an enemy that just seems structurally resistant to laying down its arms.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving deep into today. The Trump administration's 20-point Gaza peace plan.
Right.
While this framework, delivered a critical pause in the violence, which is a success in itself, our sources show it fundamentally rests on a really precarious strategy.
And what's that?
It's relying on what diplomatic circles call constructive ambiguity.
That ambiguity. That's the core tension we really need to unpack for you. It's this vagueness that intentionally defers the most existential security issues.
It kicks the can down the road.
It does. So we are going to analyze the highly asymmetrical terms of Phase 1, and maybe more importantly, look at the deep and ongoing internal power struggles within the Hamas leadership.
Because those internal conflicts are what threaten to shatter the entire fragile deal long before Phase 2 even begins.
So just to set the baseline for everyone, Phase 1 secured a ceasefire through an exchange.
That's right. Hamas was required to release 48 remaining hostages, only 20 living captives, and the remains of 28 deceased individuals.
And in exchange?
In exchange for approximately 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. And critically, on the ground, the Israeli army withdrew from only about 43% of the Gaza Strip.
So they still control the majority.
They retain control over 57% and the strategic Rafah crossing. So this is, the definition of a negotiated pause, not a resolution.
Okay, let's unpack this with the necessary context. I mean, any negotiation involving Hamas has to be viewed through the lens of the October 7th attacks.
It has to be.
Our source material describes this event not just as an attack, but as the worst terror attack in modern times.
And history's most documented terrorist attack.
Which means any truce must be security first.
The emphasis in the documents we reviewed is on that documented, premeditated barbarity. It necessitated immediate and comprehensive security guarantees. This wasn't a spontaneous action.
Hello.
We saw new evidence revealing that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's 2022 internal memo. It detailed intentions to burn down villages and, quote, cut the throats of soldiers.
So the operational goal was set years in advance.
It appears so. And the genocidal intent wasn't just theoretical, it was actually implemented.
Right. The intercepted audio that was provided to the sources.
Yeah.
It confirms commanders instructing terrorists on the ground to slash their throats.
And specifically commanding them to destroy the Israeli channel.
That kind of instruction, I mean, it confirms the premeditated barbarism was both practiced and then implemented in the field.
That's the key takeaway. The goal was scorched earth tactics. It was all designed specifically to inflict maximum psychological harm on the Israeli population, coupled with, physical destruction.
Burning everything in their path.
Commanders actively encouraged it. And this documented intent is the prism through which security analysts are viewing this current truce.
So let's look at the specific deliverables of Phase 1 that secure this pause. Starting with the exchange itself, the terms were, well, profoundly asymmetrical.
The numbers really tell the story. Hamas releases 48 Israeli hostages, with only 20 confirmed to be alive.
20.
And in exchange, they get approximately 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees.
And that number includes what?
It was around 250 security prisoners and then 1,700 Gazans who were swept up during the conflict. It also covered the return of 500 Palestinian bodies.
That is an astonishingly lopsided ratio. It speaks volumes about the immediate leverage that the hostage crisis granted Hamas in the negotiation room.
It really does.
And regarding territorial control, Israel made only a partial pullback.
Right. The IDF, they pulled back from 43% of the Strip. But, as we said, Israel retains full operational control over the majority, 57% of the territory.
Including the critical Rafah border crossing.
Exactly. And this demarcation relies on what's being called the yellow line, which marks the limit of the Israeli withdrawal.
And the sources say this line is controversial.
Very. It's practically difficult to enforce. It lacks clear markers on the ground, and that leads to dangerous, sometimes lethal incidents when displaced Palestinians approach it. It just underscores the ongoing danger of a partitioned Gaza.
The deal also mandated increased humanitarian aid, right? Targeting the entry of 600 aid trucks a day.
That was the mandate, yes, but implementation lagged. at least initially.
Okay.
United Nations reports indicated that in the first week, only about 339 trucks were offloaded for distribution. The volumes did increase substantially later, but the logistical difficulty of delivery in a war zone, it's a huge challenge, even with a truce.
Now let's turn to the fine print. I mean, this is where it gets really interesting. The core security risks that the plan avoids addressing directly. This is where that concept of constructive ambiguity shines, but also where it harbors future conflict.
Well, what's fascinating here is that mediators used that vagueness to bridge gaps that were otherwise insurmountable. That's how they got the initial ceasefire.
But it creates a ticking time bomb.
It absolutely does, because it intentionally defers resolution on the two major military conflicts that determine Hamas's survival.
Specifically on demilitarization. The plan requires Hamas to place its weapons permanently beyond use.
Permanently beyond use. That phrase is a masterpiece of ambiguity. It's designed to satisfy two opposing sides at the same time.
So Israel demands
Total and verifiable disarmament. But Hamas has made it clear it interprets beyond use as only surrendering offensive heavy weaponry, like rockets.
while retaining small arms.
Exactly, rifles, pistols, for maintaining what they call internal order or security within Gaza.
And if they retain those small arms for internal order, doesn't that make the planned international stabilization force fundamentally redundant?
That's the question.
I mean, isn't Israel effectively signing off on a new, lightly armed Hamas police force under a different name?
That is precisely the core conflict that remains unresolved. If Hamas remains the functional security authority on the ground, the whole objective of removing them from power is it's undermined.
And the tunnels, the critical military infrastructure, the backbone of Hamas's military survival. The plan requires their neutralization.
And again, the ambiguity is the problem. Does neutralization mandate total physical destruction of the tunnel network, which is what Israel demands for its security? Or does it just mean revealing their locations to a neutral party for monitoring, which would be, an insufficient concession that Hamas might actually accept?
Since the tunnels are so essential for them.
For movement, resupply, protection of their remaining fighters, their leaders, this is a conflict over the group's continued existence.
And if we look at this proposed International Stabilization Force, the ISF, that's supposed to police Gaza, that also carries some severe operational risks.
Well, the sources indicate the ISF is tasked with training local police and border security, but its composition and its mandate remain frustratingly undefined.
And few nations are actually pledging troops.
Very few. And this raises a monumental question. For this international force to operate effectively inside Gaza without, provoking violent resistance, it requires the tacit cooperation of the very Hamas authorities it is nominally supposed to replace.
So how can a path to peace be considered stable if the remnants of the group whose charter demands destruction are necessary to keep the peace?
It can't.
It sounds like establishing the preconditions for the next conflict, not
Right.
preventing it.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, even if the truce holds today, the upcoming political battle inside Hamas threatens to nullify all this diplomatic progress. The organization is currently in a state of precarious leadership transition.
We're talking about the leadership vacuum created by the assassination of high-profile figures, people like Ismail Haniyeh and later Yahya Sinwar in 2024.
That's right. So Hamas is currently run by a 5-person temporary committee operating mostly out of Doha in Qatar.
Just a placeholder.
Merely a placeholder until the scheduled leadership elections, which are anticipated in early January 2026. And this election will pit two very different factions against each other.
And that will determine whether the group adheres to the truce terms or just resumes full-scale conflict. So let's detail that conflict. The two leading candidates.
The first, and the one who's currently favored to win, is Khalil al-Hayya.
Okay.
He is described in our source documents as a pro-Iran hardliner. His stated policy explicitly favors continuing armed conflict until there is a full Israeli withdrawal from all of Gaza.
And he has a strong base of support.
A very strong base due to his influence in Gaza and his direct involvement in West Bank operations.
The alternative is Khalid Mashal.
Yes. He's seen as being closer to Qatar and, potentially more open to negotiated compromises for Gaza's future.
The implication of this election is pretty stark then. A victory by the hardliner al-Hayya in early 2026 would significantly increase the risk of Hamas violating the terms of Phase 2.
Absolutely. He would view any compromise as surrender.
Moving beyond security, the peace plan also tries to solve the governance problem. It tries to bypass the existing Palestinian Authority entirely.
It does. It does that by creating a new administration. a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee under the ultimate oversight of an international board of peace chaired by President Trump.
A technocratic committee.
Yeah.
So it's designed to manage the daily affairs of Gaza water, electricity, schools, without any political affiliation.
That's the idea. But the governance plan itself has faced heavy criticism.
For whom?
Well, critics argued this entire arrangement effectively places Gaza under international receivership. It subordinates local Palestinian administrators to external powers, and it lacks any democratic mandate.
They called it an ugly colonial construct.
They did, because of the heavy international oversight and the lack of political legitimacy for this new committee.
And the major danger here, the thing you have to watch out for, is the risk of a permanent Phase 1 scenario. What does that look like?
It means that if negotiations over Phase 2 stall, which is, let's be honest, highly likely given the core ambiguities over disarmament and governance.
Then Gaza remains permanently partitioned.
Exactly. Israel retains control over that strategic 57% and the Rafah crossing, leaving the rest of the population destitute, managed only by a weak, unelected technocratic body that lacks the political legitimacy to govern effectively.
The military pause becomes a frozen conflict.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you as you watch the news unfold? The Trump peace plan delivered a crucial temporary pause in violence. It secured the release of some hostages.
And that's not nothing.
It's not. But it achieved that success by deliberately deferring every core security and governance conflict. The ambiguity and international pressure temporarily silenced the guns, but the enemy is far from defeated or structurally disarmed.
Gaza faces a severe looming threat. It's the combination of a potential hardline shift in Hamas leadership in 2026, coupled with the risk that this whole deal just calcifies into a permanent partitioned crisis.
Managed by an internationally supervised committee.
Right. And unless firm progress is made on security, which has to mean total disarmament and legitimate non-technocratic governance, the current situation only prevents war today. It doesn't build a lasting foundation for peace tomorrow.
The success of this fragile ceasefire, it really rests on a fundamental question of political reality versus security necessity. The sources we analyzed highlighted Hamas's documented doctrine and training, instructions to slash throats and achieve maximum psychological damage.
That context is inescapable.
It is. And it leaves you wondering if constructive ambiguity is a viable path to peace in this environment, or if it's just a political euphemism for a guaranteed future conflict. That's the high-stakes gamble we are all watching play out.